Hello, my friends. Rob Roselli coming to you once again. Facebook, Clean TV. Today being Thursday, October 6th, 2016. And again, the website is boxofsunglasses.com. Email info@boxofsunglasses.com and Twitter @Rob Roselli. And in the last show, we went through Revelation 17 line by line, and prior to that, we went through some of the background of the build-up to Revelation 17 and 18, which, in my mind, is the play-by-play scenario of what's happening in real time on the planet Earth, okay, the entire world, and in particular, this entity known as Mystery Babylon. And most biblical scholars, conspiracy theorists, quote, etc., all have their ideas on who Mystery Babylon is. I would say majority consider it to be the Roman Catholic Church, which isn't a bad candidate. Others consider it to be Saudi Arabia. I've seen the literal Babylon, which is in modern day Iraq, which I'm not even sure it really exists anymore, except for maybe some nomadic tribes. It's not really the center of economic, demonic, and occult activity that's being described in Revelation 17 and 18. Therefore, the only real candidate, a clear winner, not that you want to win this contest, but the clear winner in the identity of Mystery Babylon is none other than New York City and the United States as a whole. Okay, when you really get down to brass tacks, there's no arguing that. I don't believe. From where this country has Christian roots, where it started, and its blessings and liberty, albeit imperfect, but the greatness that this country once was, based on its Christian foundation, to where it has fallen, to where we have this image of the beast, this scam artist in the White House, I have no doubt is the image of the beast described in Revelation 13, this multi-named, multi-birthplace, no academic background, no background ghost, this phantom, this walking occult symbol, Barack Obama, who I like to really just call Pharaoh Barry, as the parallels between Mystery Babylon and the Egypt of the Old Testament are very numerous, and I've been alluding to those time and time again. And look, the most obvious, as I've said and will continue to say, is this right here. Okay, this is the figurative middle finger of our satanic, Satan, Lucifer worshiping criminal elites. Okay, the high priest handlers, the Rothschild, Rockefeller, Ford Foundation, etc. High priest, money changer handlers of their very own Pharaoh. Just like in ancient Egypt, you had the high priest standing behind the Pharaoh and advising the Pharaoh and kind of working in the shadows and teaching him and bringing him up. Okay, in that same fashion, you have this phantom Pharaoh Barry in the White House with the same equivalent handlers, okay, who gave us this thing, all right, and this right here, which again is the ancient Egyptian pyramid of Giza with the all-seeing eye of Apollo, Osiris, or Nimrod, which is the eighth beast described in Revelation 17. Okay, remember we talked about the beast that was and is not and yet is the shall come out of the seven and is the eighth. Okay, and I don't necessarily want to go off on that tangent right now, but there it is. Okay, and these people worship this thing. And they may say this is all conspiracy theory, and that's the point. They make it so obvious and so in your face. So when the imbeciles on Fox News get on there and bury us in nonsense and nonsensical stories and endless election coverage for presidential elections that don't matter, and laugh off stuff like this, maybe that's how they get away with it. I think the most applicable saying to this whole thing, okay, is, and I don't remember who said it, Mark Twain or somebody, I forget, but it goes something like this. It says it's easier to fool the people than to convince them that they've been fooled. All right, we've been fooled, okay? All the economic experts, okay, the Ivy League hacks, the Fabian socialists, Keynesian economic douchebags, okay, the Paul Krugmans, the Larry Summers, okay, all the Goldman Sachs gang that comes out of Harvard and the other northeastern liberal elite universities, the snooty, stick your nose at America, the hate America, Ivy League people, I'll call them, okay, that graduate and go down to D.C., the District of Criminals, and run the nation into the ground under the auspices of this, okay. That's really what's at play here. That's the ruination of this once great nation. The media, academic, banking, military complex, okay, which I like to call the un-American genocidal complex, and it's centered right here, okay. Now the cultism associated with all these, okay, the Georgia Guidestones, okay, brought to us by Robert Christian, all right, Robert Christian, representative of the 18th or 603 or 6 plus 6 plus 6 degree of Freemasonry, not an accident, okay, the rose plus the cross, the skull and bones, okay, the Bush crime family, the Nazi supporting grandfather Prescott Bush, tied in with the Harrimans, okay, who were part of the un-American genocidal complex, who gave us this guy being Adolf Hitler, along with the American eugenics crowd, okay, the Darwinists, okay, the survival of the fittest crowd, who were putting black people in zoos and carnivals as proof of evolution, okay, the forerunners to our liberal, mostly white Ivy League elites, okay, the eugenics, the radical environmental crowd, okay, the same ones who gave us this half-white phantom known as Pharaoh Barry, okay, it's all tied up in here, the un-American genocidal complex, okay. And you're going to see this language tonight when we go through Revelation 18. So I'm trying to tie the bridge between the reality, okay, and the biblical, okay. Not a lot of people do it, and I'm trying to do my best to make that bridge, okay. So nothing in the history of the world compares to the evil that comes out of this once great nation, okay, this nation formerly known as the United States, this what I'm calling the Federal Reserve Corporation with its mercenary army, okay, starting wars all over the world for no reason except the nation's run by a bunch of psychopaths who want to induce World War III, okay, to clear the deck so they can have their order out of chaos. So in honor of their god Pan, who was another form of this, excuse me, well, actually this, okay, Robert Christian, okay, who I've stated and alluded to on many shows in the past is a direct relation to this, okay, so the people that worship that and this and worship death, okay, who operate out of this, the United Nations and Mystery Babylon, want to induce World War III to bring about their order out of chaos. And maybe on a future show in the next couple of weeks we'll go through the occultism, the occult conspiracy, I'll call it, and go through how 3 world wars were started on purpose, okay? And for those that, maybe made it out of the public education system with a modicum of historical background or knowledge, there's only been 2 world wars. And I just said these people planned 3 world wars, okay? So if you look at what's going on in Russia right now, excuse me, not Russia, but with the Russians in Syria and the Chinese, and how we're pissing off the entire world between our warmongering and our hypocrisy and our debt, okay, our debt/death system known as the Federal Reserve System. We've exported inflation and debt to all the nations of the world, stolen their gold, all this other sort of thing, okay. Things start to make a lot more sense, okay. So again, 3 world wars are planned. We've only had 2. That doesn't bode well for the future, okay? And for those that are interested, if I could find it in my pile here, this is a very quick read right here. Pleased to meet you, okay? And again, both are available on my website, boxofsunglasses.com. This is more of a conversation between Satan and an O'Brien character that would represent the un-American genocidal complex, and just presents all the information available on my website, and that's reviewed on the show in a more palatable, hopefully easier to understand format. But things are getting serious at this point. The economy is faltering. Okay, it's about to implode. Okay, in Germany, the Deutsche Bank, okay, the biggest bank in Germany, I think maybe one of the biggest, if not the biggest in Europe, is on the verge of collapse. Okay, so you got the economy ready to collapse, and remember, we're irritating Russia and China amongst just about every other country in the world at this point. Okay, the world hates us. Afghanistan, Iraq, all these wars, we've invaded these countries in the name of the war on terror brought to us by the grandson of the original Bush Nazi supporting skull and bones criminal family, that being Georgie Jr., who apparently is ready to back their fellow criminal DC elite, the Clintons. Okay, so we have to get a handle on this whole thing. Okay, is what I'm getting at. Okay, we are on the verge, and I can't emphasize that enough, of a planned event. Okay, as this nation continues to irritate the entire world. Okay, ruining all these countries, ruining every country we get involved in, and now we're pushing the envelope surrounding Russia. And by the way, who are we? I mean, our economy is literally, the online deficit is $19 trillion. The real deficit, which is really how the government should calculate its debt, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 200 trillion with a T dollars. Okay, we go into debt to the tune of $1 billion, more or less, every 6 hours, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Okay. Now, of course, say a sports stadium, say a large sports stadium, just to put that in perspective, a large sports stadium said it could be $1 to $2 billion. Okay. So in other words, the United States government goes into debt, doesn't spend, but mathematically goes into debt. Okay. To roughly the equivalent of, say, the new Minnesota Metrodome, or whatever it's called, or Giant Stadium, or whatever that stadium's called now, the MetLife Center, or whatever scam corporation paid the rights to have them on that stadium. But anyway, just picture a large sports stadium. Every 6 hours, the United States government goes into debt to the equivalent of one of those sports stadiums. All right? So we're sinking in debt. We're mired in debt. So who the hell are we to project all this military power around the world? Our military is shot. It's been decimated with these illegal wars, not to mention the political correctness of the Phantom Pharaoh Barry and all the stupid political correct nonsense, okay, ruining the military. So you have to step back and say this nation is run by psychopaths, okay? Again, the only thing, when you step back and you connect the dots, and I hear people and economists that I listen to, and they do have a lot of good information, and they say stuff like, well, it's, we're going into Syria, we're upset with Syria because Syria wouldn't allow the natural gas pipeline to go from, I don't know, from Turkey to Iraq or something, and it's all economy, and the bankers, their plan is falling apart. I'll agree with their take on the economy, but I totally disagree for the reasons of what's going on. Okay, at some point, you have to step back, and I'm not saying these people are intelligent. They're very unintelligent from a biblical standpoint. From a worldly standpoint, they're slick and they're sly, and they're very intelligent from a worldly standpoint. By the way, from a biblical standpoint, they're what's known as a fool. Okay, but that's probably getting out of the realm of what we want to talk about tonight. But what I'm saying is, when you look at this logically and you apply what's called Occam's razor to the whole thing, and you go for the simplest straight line conclusion, as unbelievable as it is, the only thing that makes sense, but these psychopathic actions of Pharaoh Barry and his devil-worshipping Egyptian high priest handlers in the background, is a drive for World War III. Okay, And unfortunately, they're going to get their wish. It's not going to go the way they want. Okay, but they're going to get their wish. All right, and their disdain for this nation, along with their Ivy League, useful idiot, liberal underlings, cannot be disguised anymore. Okay, that's just the way it is. All right, these people hate America, they hate God, they hate Jesus. It's a palpable hatred and a vitriol. Okay, that's at play here. Okay, and I go back in John's gospel, they hated me for no reason. If they hate me, they shall hate you also, which is fine. They've been given control of this world. Okay, remember Matthew 4 and Luke 4, Satan offers the kingdoms of the world to Jesus 2,000 years ago because he already knew that he owned the kingdoms of the world, but that's all he owns. Okay. So again, where is this? What is the focal point of what's going on in the world right now? Okay, I guess is what I'm saying, and it's none other than these United States. Okay, it all begins and ends here. How these so-called biblical scholars can sit there and say with a straight face, how is the United States not part of biblical prophecy? Or where's the United States in biblical prophecy? Well, it's not there because they take these idiotic literal interpretations of the Bible and they make Jews, Israel, physical Israel, God's chosen people, and they come up with all kinds of nonsense, and they miss things wholesale, like the evil that has come out of this nation. I hate to say it, for the past 100 years. Okay, this evil, they missed this. They missed the man-made deployment of the AIDS virus. Okay, the 50 million abortions, and I've read this letter from the Life Legal Defense Foundation. Okay, 50 million abortions and counting. And the one described in this letter here where a live 20-week-old human infant, okay, had its face ripped off so the brain can be extracted intact for $160. Okay. Now this is supposed to be a Christian nation. All right. And people, a lot of so-called, major religions, this Tim Kaine, this vice presidential candidate, the shady Tim Kaine, by the way, that's a whole other story. The Jesuit / Catholic girly man, Tim Kaine, Hillary's interesting running mate. Okay, that's a whole other story in and of itself. But anyway, this is where we are as a nation. Okay, it's got nothing to do with anything. Okay, this is God versus the world. Okay, and the world's gonna win. Unfortunately, is the way this is all going down. Now, so when I say that, okay, so Mystery Babylon, we're going to get to this in a second. It says, come out of her, my people, and we'll get to this. There's still plenty of, I don't know how much plenty of time, but there's still time for a personal relationship with the Creator, okay? And that's in God's simple salvation plan. That's, again, on the homepage of my site, boxofsunglasses.com. So in all this, I suggest you take a long, hard look at that. Is the best advice I can give at this point in time. Okay, and it doesn't matter. Okay, and if you read Galatians, okay, Galatians 3, there's no male or female, rich or poor, bond or free. So there's no racial groups. There's no difference between men and women. Okay. It's the body of Christ, okay, that everybody must become a part of, okay? It's not exclusive, all right? It's anybody, okay? But you must humble yourself. And it's just as simple as that. No, God's not a respecter of persons, okay? 1 Peter chapter 2, okay? Romans chapter 2, and in other places, okay? So it doesn't matter, okay? And I don't want to get off on the whole thing with the male-female differences, okay? These are, whatever differences are explained, okay, are minor, okay? They're just minor instructions for this short life, this vapor trail that we call life, okay? But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's not like the religion of peace or some of these other religions, okay? where the man dominates and all this other sort of thing. Okay, it's nothing like that at all. Okay, and you can even see it today. You know, just speaking of politics, I mean, there's women out there. I mean, Margaret Thatcher, for example, the late Margaret Thatcher has more male member than 99% of the so-called men politicians in this nation. Okay, so a lot of times it's more of a figurative kind of thing in the Bible than literal. All right, as far as that goes. But again, because we're going to read a line in here that says, "Come out of her, my people," and my people can be anybody. It can be you, and hopefully it is you if you're listening to this right now. Because unfortunately, it's about to get real. All right, this debt-based mathematical scam is it's already busting. Okay, it's just they're literally papering it over, you know, as best they can. But when that financial tidal wave hits, that tsunami, okay, let's just say your little funds, your little money markets, and your little mutual funds, or whatever people have in the bank, they'll be the equivalent of little sandbags that these evil bankers, these Satan-worshipping bankers, will throw in front of that tidal wave. But as you know, it's not going to make a difference, but they don't care, because you don't matter to them. Okay, per the Georgia Guidestones here, what I call the anti-10 commandments, brought to us by Robert Christian. Okay, remember the male plus the female, the rose plus the cross, the Occident plus the Columbia, Obama, Occidental University in Columbia, joke. All right, image of the beast, Pharaoh Barry. But anyway, they don't care. When that financial tsunami hits and it's on its way, what the hell do they care? No pun intended. According to these anti-10 commandments, 90% of us should be dead anyway. So do you think taking your money and robbing it from you? Okay, well, Pharaoh Barry will say, you know, calling it investing in, T-bills or treasury bills. Okay, or that they'll come up with some kind of nonsense and they'll disguise it and they'll cover it up. But that's what it is. Okay, if the government comes in and says you're going to invest in treasury bills, what are they really saying? They're saying, well, China and Russia have finally, they're finally into the scam. They've picked up on the scam and they started dumping treasury notes years ago and been buying gold wholesale. Okay, as quietly though. Okay, because they still had United States Treasury holdings. They're not stupid about it. They're not going to let the whole thing collapse. They're not going to let the word out that the United States is a dead man walking. Okay, they're going to buy as much gold and real estate as they can while their treasury bills still have value. Okay, but that shell game's coming to an end. There's only so much money that the scam artists can print called quantitative easing. So what's the next domino in the progression? Okay, is people's money. Okay, now Pharaoh Barry will get on TV and say, well, they'll call it taking a haircut or whatever, or they'll just say, well, now you're going to invest, your money's being forcibly invested in treasury bills. Okay, so this way they can say they're not really stealing it. They're just, quote, borrowing it. Okay, because they're just looking to float the scam for a little bit longer, whatever their plans are, who knows. Okay, as this insanity continues. But the point is that there's trouble headed our way. Okay, and I would submit that this is the deadly head wound that's described in Revelation. Okay, from which will be a recovery, a very quick recovery. Okay, I believe there's going to be some kind of fake peace treaty between these nations that hate us. Okay, and the United Nations with Pharaoh Barry, the image of the beast, right in the middle of the whole thing. Okay, there will be some kind of quick resolution to the economic tsunami, but it's all going to be a lie. Okay, and this fits in actually, I think, quite nicely with the scenario, painted in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. When they cry peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come upon them. So I think we're going to have that. I think that's the scenario playing out right now. Now, hopefully I'm wrong. I could be wrong. But it doesn't seem that way. It seems like things are shaping up, unfortunately, to the way they're spelled out right here. Okay, and I don't profess to be perfect or have all the answers, but unfortunately, this is the scenario that's playing out. Okay, and just let me review again before we get into it. The 3 principles that to make this whole understandable. Number 1 is the Bible is the infallible Word of God, no questions asked. Okay. Number 2 is Israel. Okay, physical national Israel today is not God's chosen people. Okay, again, I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm not one of these. The Jews are responsible for everything. Anti-Zionist morons either. But from a purely biblical standpoint, it is just I even hesitate to call it theology, bad theology. It's so unbiblical or extra biblical to sit here and say that Israel are God's chosen people or God's covenant people. Okay, the very term New Testament, it means a new covenant. Okay, the Last Supper, Jesus says, I'm making a new covenant with you, the apostles, on the Passover. Okay, the next day the Jews kill them to get rid of them or try to get rid of them. All right, and those are God's chosen people. They made a deal with Judas / Satan. Okay, Satan entered Judas' heart. And then Zechariah 11, they covenanted me for 30 pieces of silver. Okay, and those are God's chosen people. Jesus, right before his death, how you brood of vipers and serpents, how can you escape being condemned to hell? That's God's chosen people. All right, and I don't want to go off on that whole thing right now, but it's just I don't know what else to say. I mean, I watch these morons on Daystar and Trinity Broadcasting Network absolutely aghast with the Jewish Star of David, so-called, and sitting in the background, which is really an occult symbol given to us by David's son Solomon, the upside down, up triangle and down triangle, which really represents something called the Emerald Tablet, brought to us by Hermes, the Greek god Hermes, or the Egyptian god Thoth, which ties into Horus, which ties back into this guy, Robert Christian. All right? So these morons, these Israel First morons, have an occult symbol that goes all the way back to King Solomon that represents the worst occultism in the world, the same kind of whoredom that, the God is describing throughout the whole entire Old Testament. If you read through just about any book of the whole Old Testament, okay? And we went through several chapters of this a couple shows back, Ezekiel 16, Ezekiel 23, just about the whole book of Isaiah and Jeremiah, the so-called minor prophets. And they're still doing it. But anyway, not to go off on that tangent, and the 3rd principle, of course, is what we're discussing now, is that segues into number 3. There's no doubt that the country formerly known as the United States, which I call the Federal Reserve Corporation of America, is the Mystery Babylon of Revelation 17 and 18. Okay? No doubt. And I would say this, try and catch John Carpenter's They Live, okay, and watch that movie and really think about what it's saying. Maybe get past the low budget and the maybe not the greatest acting, okay, because you cannot follow this show or try to follow my site or what I'm saying and then go back and watch Fox News and take those imbeciles, those mimbos and those bimbos on Fox News and take them seriously. It's just not going to work, okay? There's maybe 2 or 3 people on Fox, and I don't want to get into that right now, that are worth their weight, that I really have genuine respect for, and I believe are really good Americans. But other than that, it's Madison Avenue neocon warmongering crap. All right, wasting our time with this stupid election coverage. Take Fox News. How about the National Defense Authorization Act? How about this psychopathic drive for World War III? Except repeating, the words of the neocon maniacs in Congress and these so-called experts at the Brookings Institute who are pushing for war with Russia over nothing. Okay. But anyway, not that I'm turning this into the Fox News bashing hour, but that's just where we are. Okay. So let's just get back and just kind of pick this up at the end of Revelation 17. This is verses 15 to 18. Okay, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, i.e. the United States. Now these 10 kings, now these are nations around the world. Okay, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdoms and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the word of God shall be fulfilled. And a woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Okay, so what other nation today, October 6, 2016, better fits this description? Reigns over the kings of the earth, although that status is rapidly dissipating. And what nation is hated by the other nations of the world? Okay? There's no time to build some stupid temple in Jerusalem, okay? You know, the John Hagees of the world, your stupid rebuilt temple with your two-horned, Antichrist, sitting in some chair that's going to take 20 years to happen. It would never happen in reality because it would start World War III by itself. It ain't going to happen. All right? So that's the end of Revelation 17. Okay? And here we go on to 18. And after these things, well, let's just go back here. Shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Okay, that's very important. I shouldn't have skipped over that, taking that one so lightly. But what does that sound like to you? It sounds to me like a hell of a lot like some kind of EMP and or surprise nuclear attack, doesn't it? Which we're being set up for right now, as Russia and China move their nuclear subs. And Russia keeps, pushing the envelope up around Alaska with its long-range bombers, and who knows what's going on in space. It's too much to keep up with. Okay, but the groundwork is being laid as we speak for that part of it. Okay, and let me just, and this isn't without precedent, by the way. If you go back to Isaiah chapter 10, now the Assyrians are one of the most evil empires of the ancient world, okay, and enemies of God's chosen people. But God's chosen people, of course, hoard themselves and made friends with the Assyrians as well with their other neighbors, and we went into that briefly a couple of shows ago, but here's Isaiah chapter 10, for the first 4 verses, God's saying how angry he is with, his so-called chosen people. Then in verse 5, O Assyria, the rod of my anger and the staff in her hand is my indignation. I will send him against a hypocritical nation, against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge, and take the spoil, and take to the prey, and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. Okay, so in other words, this isn't new, okay? God has used, in this case, the Assyrians, raised up the Assyrians to attack Israel. Okay, and in this case, the northern kingdom of Israel, and of course later, the southern kingdom of Judah. Okay, you had Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. Now remember, the other day, okay, both of those kingdoms, we had the beast. We had the 5 kings that were, one is, and one shall be, okay? I identified those as Babylon, the Babylonian Empire, Egypt, the Assyrian Empire, Media, Persia, and Greece, okay? The 5 kingdoms that were, okay? And the one kingdom that is would obviously be Rome, and then a king that is, the kingdom that is, I believe, is the Anglo-British Empire, okay? Or more aptly, the Rothschild, Rockefeller money changers, okay, that really run the place. Okay, that hate the United States, they hate its Constitution, they hate its freedoms because they hate people. Okay, it's Satan-worshipping megalomaniacs and psychopaths. They hate people, and they want 90% of us dead, like I mentioned, per the anti-10 commandments of the Georgia Guidestones. Okay, so this is all the body of the beast. Okay. So let's go back into Revelation 18, And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So again, what is this saying? Okay, remember what I said, this debt-based insanity known as the Federal Reserve System has dispersed itself and disseminated itself throughout the world. Okay, and who better? I mean, all the nations of the earth were made with this fake wealth, this debt-based fake wealth of the Federal Reserve System, and that's where that word waxed comes in. They waxed rich. Okay, now what happens to wax? Okay, when the fire or the wrath of God comes, it melts right away, doesn't it? It doesn't last. Okay, when they say waxed rich, that's what they're talking about. Okay, you invested in the United States. You let our companies like China and other places, our nations come, and you had this fake wealth. Okay, because the United States was exporting its Federal Reserve notes and its fake wealth. Okay, and that's really what that last part, say verse 3, is getting at. But prior to that, okay, it says, Babylon the Great is fallen. Okay, now I believe that Babylon, it says it there, so it says it for emphasis, but of course the original Babylon is fallen, is that under, okay, back there in, was it 639 BC when Babylon, okay, this is in the book of Daniel, okay, I believe it's Daniel chapter 5, where the Babylonian Empire, they revived the Babylonian Empire under Nebuchadnezzar, okay, and his grandson Belshazzar was overtaken by the Medo-Persian Empire, okay. That's the first fallen, so that leaves a second fallen, okay, which is none other than the United States, okay, the mystery Babylon that we're talking about right now. Now, and it says, and it became the hold of every foul spirit and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. That's a very interesting term, okay, unclean bird. And I've heard, the so-called giants or the so-called angels, the fallen angels, okay, what the History Channel calls ancient aliens, okay. I've heard these beings, okay, now we're getting into, Tom Horton and Steve Quayle territory, and you can go to stevequayle.com and learn a lot more about these so-called beings, okay, these fallen angels who rule the earth, okay, which really is the source of Greek and Egyptian and Roman mythology, okay. So those mythologies aren't really mythological as you would think, okay. They're thinly veiled historical accounts of what was going on in the world. The Genesis 6, okay, the Nephilim, the fallen angels, came to earth and made it with women, okay, then became mighty men of renown, okay. These are the so-called heroes of Greek and Egyptian and Roman mythology, okay. And I can discuss that, okay, in my own way, okay. But I'm not going to sit here and say, and my knowledge is somewhat limited, and I know enough to substantiate, where I'm going on this show. But if you really want to get into the details, stevequayle.com, Quayle, and I have no affiliation. He doesn't know who I am, okay. But I listen to the man, all right, and his website, and you can learn a lot more about these fallen angels, okay. But the point for our purposes right here is that these unclean and dirty birds are nothing but these characters of mythology, okay, these ancient aliens, so-called, okay, because they're associated with flight, okay. The best example I can think of is Orion, okay. And just to do a quick detour here now, the pyramid complex in Giza is aligned with the belt of Orion, okay. Now Orion is none other than Osiris or Apollo or Nimrod or the hidden god, or the god I've identified as great, quote, great on this show, the hidden god, the chameleon god, okay. We've talked about this on past shows, okay. But what Orion, when you think of Orion, you think of something, a fallen angel or something coming from outer space, okay? Now, I believe that that is the other beast in Revelation. There's two beasts, okay? You have Satan and you have this other beast, Apollyon. Now, the On, okay, is directly associated with Orion, okay? And that's, so the point is that these aren't ancient aliens. These are demons and fallen angels of the Old Testament, which equal, again, the heroes, the so-called heroes of Greek and Roman mythology. Okay, but these are the dirty birds being discussed right here in Revelation 18. And again, where is this so-called cage? Where is all this conglomerated? Conglomerated nowhere else but Freemasonry, okay, and the Rosicrucians and these Knights Templars and all these groups that have kind of gathered under the guise of what I'm calling the un-American genocidal complex, okay, the groups that worship this thing, okay, that you spend every day, okay. There's your dirty bird. There's your king of the dirty birds, okay, and there's his house, St. John's Divine Cathedral in Manhattan's Upper West Side. So you tell me, I mean, what is a better description? Again, it keeps coming up, New York City, okay, with Lady Liberty. Don't forget Lady Liberty. You know, keep talking about the male side of the equation, Orion or Osiris or Apollo. You got Lady Liberty down there, okay, which is nothing more than the female side of the equation, okay, the Roman goddess Libertas or Columbia. Remember, Columbia University, Farrell Barry, you know, Columbia, the rising sun, okay, or the Roman goddess Diana, the Greek goddess Artemis, Babylonian Ishtar, Egyptian Isis, etc., etc., okay. So what's a better description? And of course the wine, you know, the drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Now wine, remember we talked about wine, and that's associated with the Greek god Dionysus, which traces to the Canaanite god Baal, which again circles back around to Apollo and Osiris and Nimrod. And I really don't want to go off into a whole discussion on Greek and Roman mythology right now, but let's just suffice it to say that this is the language, or this is what's at play here in these first three verses of Revelation 18. Okay. I'm wondering if I should discuss this right now, but you know, another big thing. Now remember, just to kind of help lock this down a little bit better, what's another famous occult symbol? Okay. Now Marilyn Ferguson was a New Age author, wrote something called the Aquarian Conspiracy. Okay. This was supposedly one of the few, you know, it's called the New Age Bible. It was written in 1980 or whatever, but right on its cover, okay, and unfortunately I should have brought it up, but I didn't think I'd get to this, but you can just look this up on Amazon or just Google it, the Aquarian Conspiracy. If you look at it, right on the front cover is 3 sixes intertwined. Okay, now Aquarius, of course, the fifth root race, it's so called, okay, and boy, I don't want to go off on this right now. We get into the whole discussion on Nicholas Roerich, okay, and that evil character, okay, that New Age occultist, okay, who was best buddies with the Freemason Satanist Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his occult-minded Secretary of Agriculture Henry Wallace, who were responsible for putting the Great Seal on the dollar bill. Okay, but anyway, I don't want to go off on that right now, but the point is, that's another piece of the puzzle here, okay? So if we go and we talk about the Aquarian Age, what are we really talking about? Okay, now remember, it's a dedication to these so-called ancient aliens, or these dirty birds, or these gods of mythology. Okay, Aquarius, okay, the constellation Aquarius, the 12 constellations of the zodiac. That's really the source of it. Now, remember in the 2008 Democratic National Convention, what did the high priest of the environmental movement, Al Gore, what did he walk out to? What song? This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Okay, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, the Aquarian age, okay, the sun rising on a newly created earth, okay, a new day in their mind. Now again, that new day doesn't happen until 90% of us imbeciles disappear. Okay, so now the hopefully the evil, okay, the seemingly evil or the nastiness that's taking place or being described here is starting to make sense. Okay, remember in Matthew 24, Jesus said, unless I return, no flesh shall be saved. Okay, which goes against the concept of this stupidity known as a rapture and a 7-year tribulation and all this other nonsense, all this literal, these idiots, okay, arguing about a pre-tribulation and a post-tribulation rapture and all this other nonsense. It's a one-time event. Okay, when it happens, it happens. Okay, there's no nonsense. Okay, there's no 7-year tribulation. Okay, none of that. All right, what's going to happen is going to happen hard. It's going to happen fast, and it's going to suck. Okay, so these people sitting in the pews in these mega churches, these so-called Christians, these sunshine Christians, they're going to be in for a rude awakening. Okay, when this stuff starts happening, and they're right in the middle of it with the rest of us. So anyway, that's as far as I want to take that part of it right now. Okay, but just be aware. Okay, when the high priest of the radical environmental movement, Al Gore, came out to the dawning of the age of Aquarius, that's really what was being played there. Okay, in honor of Pharaoh Barry, the 44th President of the United States. And by the way, on the homepage, and I don't want to, don't forget, let's not forget Pharaoh Barry, okay? I have 2 links. Okay, I have a Mystery Babylon ebook on my homepage, and part 3 of that, and then on the bottom there's a whole discussion on, I have a whole discussion on Pharaoh Barry, this walking occult symbol, Pharaoh Barry, okay, which I could probably spend several shows on in and of itself, but just keep in mind, okay, it's just another piece of the puzzle in this whole thing, okay, the Horus, okay, the Occident plus the Columbia, okay. So what I'm saying is that all these people that are trying to get into Pharaoh Barry's background, his academic records, I'm saying they don't exist. I'm saying this guy's a complete phantom. I'm saying the reason that he claims to have gone to Occidental University and Columbia University, it's got nothing to do with his school. It's got everything to do with, because he's the occult symbol. Okay, he's the signal. Okay, he's the combination of the West plus the East. Okay, the Occident, the setting sun, the dead sun god Osiris, impregnating Columbia with a rising sun, or the age of Aquarius in the East. Okay, and the 44th president, number 44, just so happens to be the number of the son of God, or the sun god Horus. Okay, now every Egyptian pharaoh was known as Horus, which was basically the offspring of Osiris and Isis. Okay, so now that 10th plague back there in Exodus, okay, that wasn't God, being some kind of, I'm just going to kill people because I like it, okay. That killing of the firstborn in Egypt, okay, that was a preview of this discussion here in Mystery Babylon, this death, this killing of the firstborn in Egypt. This is serious stuff. So, in other words, another way to look at this is our criminal Satan-worshipping Illuminati overlords are basically giving God the middle finger and saying, look, again, we have our Pharaoh, and here he is. His name is Pharaoh Barry. Okay, and we imbeciles are right in the middle of this whole thing. Okay. Now, we're going to go to verses 4 to 8. I alluded to this before, okay? And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she has rewarded you, and double unto her her double according to her works. In the cup which she has filled to her double, in the cup which she has filled to her double. How much she has glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her, for she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her." There's a lot going on here, okay? And in some aspects, it's a reiteration of the end of Revelation 17. Okay, remember in the Old Testament, Isaiah 10, we just read through that the Assyrians were the rod of God's anger. In the New Testament, it seems like the whole world, these 10 horns of the beast that hate the whore, that are riding the beast, is the rod of his anger. Okay. Doesn't bode well for the United States. Okay, so what's in focus here is a surprise nuclear / EMP attack, and the Russians are getting ready to do this, and probably the Chinese too. Okay, so the Russians. Now think about it this way. Okay, I'm just some stupid guy here. Okay, out here on YouTube, and I'm coming up with this information. Do you think Vladimir Putin and all his intelligence, okay, that doesn't have to sit there and get the information from the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and Fox News and this other garbage that passes off as news in this country? Do you think Vladimir Putin, okay, well-versed in Russian history and world history, and not to mention all the best intelligence in the world, do you think he has this figured out? Okay, that you can't negotiate with these psychopaths, these Satan-worshipping psychopaths that run this nation, that hate this nation. Okay. Do you think he has this figured out? That for his nation's very survival, that he has to strike us first? Okay. How are you going to negotiate with Pharaoh Barry, with the image of the beast? Okay, the son of the liar and the father of lies. Okay. Now, come out of her, my people. Now, remember, I said that before. It doesn't matter, okay? Galatians 3, male, female, bond, or free, rich or poor. God's not a respecter of persons. And again, that gets back to my concept of God's simple salvation plan. This nation ain't coming back, okay? Forget Trump, all right? Forget Trump, all right? And hopefully he has his own little revival, similar to, say, King Nebuchadnezzar back there in the book of Daniel, the Apostle Paul, and I really wish he does have his Damascus Road moment, okay, per Acts chapter 9, okay? But forget Trump, okay? He ain't winning nothing, and if he does win, they'll just shoot him, or they'll get rid of him in some way, okay? Something will happen. These leeches, these Satan-worshipping leeches that have taken his nation from within, this Rockefeller, Rothschild high priest, the handlers of Pharaoh Barry, plus their useful idiot underlings, their liberal, progressive, Ivy League useful idiot underlings, and these low-grade petty criminals, these buzzards, okay, these bees surrounding Hillary Clinton and her fellow psychopathic criminals, okay, there's John Kerry and his Newland and these other little warmongering little psychopaths, okay? These megalomaniacs. Do you think they're just going to walk away, give up their power? They've been building this mystery Babylon, or what they think is their kingdom, their kingdom under their god Lucifer. They've been building this since the Garden of Eden. It's all culminating right now, whether you want to believe it or not. Do you think they're just going to walk away and give up because Trump and the people that they hate, okay, they have disdain for. Just today, while I'm on the subject, and probably have to stop it here and continue with Revelation 18 on the next show. But just today, where did I don't know, I'll go look for it right now, but it said something about Obama. Farrell Barry, something about he didn't like the, let me see if I can get the terms. 1 second here. Just to illustrate what my point here. And again, I'm trying to make this bridge between Revelation and current events. But what did Farrell Barry have to say? I don't know, I lost track of the article. But the Pharaoh, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know which website I found it on, but basically Pharaoh said he had a disdain for the crude populism, I think was the word, of the Trump followers. So what is Pharaoh really saying? He's saying, I'm an Ivy League elitist. How dare you stupid little people. And it's not nothing on race, okay? He hates white people. He hates black people. He hates everybody. Okay, he's the son of Satan. He's just full of hate and vitriol and megalomania like his overlords. Okay, but I think it was the crude populism. So what's he really saying? He's saying, you stupid little people, you stupid little Americans out there, you supporters of Trump, we hate you. Okay, and that's reflective, again, of his condescending, survival of the fittest, Darwinist, eugenic, Ivy League, and Rothschild Rockefeller handlers, i.e. the un-American genocidal complex. Okay, so what I'm saying is the disdain that these people hold and he cried with a strong voice saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. We went through all this, the hold of every foul spirit. So I think we've covered this, not necessarily in order. And this is verses 1 through 3 of Revelation 18. All right. And then we went through verses 4 through 8. Okay, just as a recap. So again, come out of her, my people. Okay, I guess is the most important takeoff for tonight. All right. So forget Trump. Forget trying to save this nation. It ain't going to happen. It ain't happening. Okay, this nation's gone. It's done. It's a dead man walking. It's a debt-based scam that the world hates. Okay. And like I said, the Russians are looking at it. They're in survival mode. Okay. They've realized there's no negotiating with these Satanists. And like I said, these Satanists, they want the war. They want the chaos. There's no way they can have their Columbia or their dawning of their age of Aquarius without the chaos first. Okay? They can't have their new world. They can't share their new world with 6.5 billion people that they absolutely disdain. Okay? Now this thing here, therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord who judges with her. Now again, I think in this case, this is one of the few cases when a day, I think this is a literal day. Okay, because that fits in with a surprise EMP/nuclear attack. Okay. And again, I believe this is, and we don't get into this here, but there's a deadly head wound that was here. And I believe that deadly head wound that you've probably heard about is to one of the heads of the beast. Now, again, I'm going to go with the figurative or the symbolic meaning of that. Okay, it's not going to be, doesn't mean, all right, Farrell Barry's going to get a gunshot, or whoever the so-called Antichrist is going to get shot to the head, and he's going to recover, and everybody's going to start worshiping the beast. Look, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think it's more of it talks about a head wound to the beast. Okay, these are talking about entire nations and kingdoms. It's an economic wound. Okay, and then you're going to have some really bizarre stuff going on when that happens. Then it goes into overdrive. Okay, Pharaoh Barry, the son of Satan, goes into overdrive, and then you're going to get all kinds of weird stuff going on. Okay, including a fake worldwide peace treaty. this UFO disclosure, all kinds of things, and people are going to say, oh, Pharaoh Barry, he really is the savior of the world. He's going to save us from this failed economy. He's going to save us from World War III, which is about to happen. But again, I think that's where 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 fits in this whole thing. When they shout peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come. Now, this sudden destruction, this sounds an awful lot like this verse 8 in chapter 18. Okay, her plague shall come in one day, death and mourning and famine shall be utterly burned with fire. Okay, that sounds a lot to me like sudden destruction. Okay, so what I'm getting at is the pieces of this puzzle are fitting together. Okay, and again, there's nothing in here that accounts for a rapture. Okay, or a temple in Jerusalem, a rebuilt temple, or with their stupid red heifers and their, all this nonsense about, the tools of the temple are being gathered, and the rabbis in Jerusalem are thinking about building an old temple, and they got their red heifers together. But these imbeciles forgot one key point. They can't step foot on the Temple Mount without starting a world war with those maniacs from the religion of peace. They can't step foot on there, much less build an entire temple. I mean, I'm no geopolitical analyst or expert, but come on. So anyway, so we'll probably end it here. So again, website is boxofsunglasses.com. In the background, really the foundation book to a lot of this, to a lot of the evil. Okay, just a window into the evil of Mystery Babylon is right here. Okay, the un-American genocidal complex, and it's manifested in stories like this from the Life Legal Defense Foundation, where we are ripping the faces off live human beings and selling their brains for $160. Okay, and of course, if you want, pleased to meet you. Okay, hopefully that's just really as an eye-opener, we'll call it. Okay, it's a 1 hour, 2 hour read. And both those books are available on Amazon or through the publisher's website, and the links are on my site. Again, boxofsunglasses.com. And don't forget God's Simple Salvation Plan. Okay, good night and God bless.